everybody, and welcome to episode 192 of the I Rock Knits podcast. My name is Cori Eichelberger, and I'm your host today, but we are redoing an interview with Shana, a friend and designer who recorded an entire amazing interview with me a few weeks ago, and it only recorded 4 minutes and 22 seconds. And then it shut off or something happened, and that's all I got from Zoom. And so I had to ask her if she would redo it. I was feeling so bad about it. But in the scope of all things that are going on, Shana just said, you could get mad about that, but it's kind of a smaller thing. So I'm really thankful that she's willing to come back. So Shana is a knitwear designer and an architecture instructor. So professor, what would you call yourself?
Yeah, I'm an architect and design educator. So
There
I'm
we go.
trained as an architect and design educator. I keep my architectural license active. I currently work for a college in a remote capacity as a thesis advisor for students getting their Master of Architecture degree. So
Right. So this is going to be fascinating because she has a different perspective. And I think it's super interesting, even though I've already all gone through this once, but we were talking about when we met, and we think that we met at one of the first zombie knitpocalypse retreats back in the
yeah.
day. And then I've traveled to Colorado a couple times for Yarn Fest, and I reached out to Shana a couple of times to teach at different events, to sign up for Teach, which don't
Yeah.
let me forget. There are a couple of people doing calls for teachers right now, knitting
Cool. Yeah,
teachers
we'll
right
talk
now.
about
I
that
just
after.
filled out applications yesterday, so I will
Cool.
send those links to you
Thanks.
because it's that time of year where people are
Yeah,
starting
yeah.
to fill for next fall and next winter, which is crazy to me.
Yes.
I literally signed a contract for June of 2027.
Yeah, I would think that you would think that I would get better with time planning and management and pattern releases, understanding when I teach a class, I make the entire 16-week semester before it starts. And then even after so many years, that timing is not necessarily my best skill all the time.
We have figured out several things about us that are similar, and
Yeah,
I am always bumping up against my deadlines.
yeah.
Always. I started this last sweater in October, and it just came out last weekend, and I was still knitting a sleeve on
Oh,
the
wow.
third
It looks
sample. Well,
great.
I
Yeah.
decided to I decided to knit a third sample in
Well,
January, which was
yeah.
like, you kind of do that to yourself. You're like, oh, well, I should show one more
Well, I
iteration or
was going to
another.
say October to now. That doesn't sound like a long time at all to me. I
Yeah, it was. Well, I got the yarn to knit the sweater and then write it
Yeah,
up. And
I
then,
actually looked at a design that I just sent to my editor for review that I looked at the date on the original photo I took of my sample, and it is 1 year ago. Like, I don't even know what happened. It sort of got pushed to the bottom. And now I think a year ago I was thinking maybe this isn't the right timing. And then,
yeah,
so
well, and
maybe
that
it isn't
too,
the right
right?
timing now anyway. Yeah.
I'm kind of terrible at saying yes to everything too, and then getting myself a little
Oh, well, I'm
over.
working on that. And a dear friend of mine got me this sticker a couple years ago that says, I said no. And she said, you need to have that. And I recently said no to something in my architecture world. I said, that sounds like a nice opportunity. And thank you for thinking of me. I am not going to do it. And so I'm actually very proud of myself for doing that because I think we share a trait of being extroverted, being like in the mix. And I'm like, I want to do it. I want to do it. And I have realized that there are certain things that I can say yes. People will enjoy my participation, my contribution. And there are certain things that then I come home at the end and I think I resent that I said yes, right? And so I'm working on that. I'm working on taking care of myself also. Yeah.
I agree. I think my thing, part of that is I get flattered. Like they're asking
Yeah.
me, right?
Yeah.
I'm honored. I get like, oh, how, and because I think we both are kind of on the struggle bus of design, right? Like it's a thing we really want to do, and then it's hard to be seen. And so I continue to take opportunities because I think it
Oh,
will help
yeah.
me be seen, right? Like I want to put it out at the right time, at the right
Right.
place, or via the right social, whatever it can help me. Because we're just so inundated,
That's
right?
right.
Like,
I think, yeah, I think for myself, I try to just remind myself, I'm looking at a whole pile of things, but if I can feel really good about the design, the product, putting myself into it, I can feel like that's a win for me. And I hope more people find it and enjoy it and continue to share. But I know that if I stand behind it and it has the integrity that it's Shana Lyons Designs, then I feel good about it, whether others, find and celebrate it or not, if that makes
well,
sense.
I
I think,
definitely
yeah,
think you have a following of people who have knit your first patterns and have fallen in love with your techniques and
yeah.
the way that you do things. Do you want to talk a
Thanks.
little bit about that?
Sure,
Like,
yeah,
because yeah.
sure. So my name's Shana, and my business is Shana Lyons Designs, which actually, as Cori mentioned, it comes from my
Yes,
architecture
tell that
background.
story. Tell that
Yeah.
story because yeah, because it's
Yeah, so this is
good.
my
It's a
Shana
good.
Lyons story, right? The origin story. So in architecture school, we prepare for presentations where we're doing design work. In back in my day, we pinned it up on the wall. They were analog drawings. A lot of things now are done digitally, or students are printing out their work, so they have to be cognizant of line weights and so forth. In any event, I think it was my second year of college, and I was in a drawing class. And if you've done any type of drawing before, whether it's technical or figurative drawing with different pencils, there's sort of a gradient of the hard leads, the H's to the B's, and that's the range. So your standard, your standard number two pencil is HB. It's right in the middle. And so the pencils go both ways. So I got really excited about my drawing, about the section cut. So what is actually kind of sliced through in the drawing and how the insides are revealed. And I used like a 4B lead, which is very soft. And I made these very dark lines, very thick lines. And there was a lot of contrast in the lines. So I got up and presented my work, and one of the critics said, those are some dark lines. And it's funny because in hindsight, I don't think it was a compliment, but I was like, thank you, you know. And my presentation was over and I got feedback and I sat down. And then one of my classmates had this beautiful drawing. Her line work was so, so, so light. It was, in the 6H, 4H range, very, very light. And you had to walk right up next to it. And so this critic who had commented to me, he said to her, he said, well, your technique is exquisite, but your lines, I can't see them. And he looked at me in the room. He said, what was your name? I said, Shana. And he said to my classmate, you need Shana lines. And so it was like the bold lines, the outspoken lines, the ones that are really, they're out there in your face. And so when the time came to, you know, pick a business that felt like me, pick a design name that felt like me. There was a no-brainer that Shana Lyons Designs. It feels related to my architecture background. I like simple, clean details that someone else can execute and sort of learn along the way. From the world of architecture, we create catalogs of details and the ways things go together. And ultimately, as architects, we're creating a set of drawings for someone else to execute, right?
Yeah.
So we're not actually building anything. We're creating the directions. And as knitting pattern designers, that's the same thing we're doing. We're creating the vision and then we're explaining how someone else can make something with a similar look, using the same, we tell them the types of the materials, the characteristic of the fabric, and so forth. And we say, hey, if you follow this, yours will look like the picture. So that's really important to me to think about the technique, the way things go together, how it's all finished, and then how I can communicate that in an asynchronous way, because that's also my architecture teaching. I write an assignment and I think it's crystal clear. And I present it to a student, and then, days or a week later, they read it on their own, and they need to be able to have that same clarity in the piece of paper as when we were standing next to each other. So,
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's funny because when I first met you, I thought your last name was Lines. Do other people
yeah.
make that
Every
assumption?
so often, I have someone that calls me Mrs. Lines. Yeah. And I'm like, no, that's
Which
okay.
is kind of cute. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of fun, but
Yeah,
it
I
doesn't.
actually really like it. Like, it actually makes me laugh.
Yeah,
So I
it's
like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
But I mean, it would make sense that people would think that because of the
Yeah.
way it flows, but it does really flow, and the rhyme is kind of nice,
Yeah. Yeah, it works out, right?
Yeah,
It works
it
out.
absolutely did.
Yeah.
So some of your early I'll just give a little background here.
Sure.
Shana started designing in May of 2018. Now she might have been doing some before, but that was kind of when the first, so it was about the same time that I was getting
Yeah.
started. And you have 77 patterns out there, which is quite notable. I mean, that's a lot of patterns.
Yeah.
And then you have a lot of patterns that have a lot of projects. So you have
Yeah.
people who really enjoy knitting the type of pattern that you write. And I think that as a designer, that is kind of a niche that you have to find, right? It
Yeah.
took me my first few patterns before I started writing checklist patterns because
Right.
I teach so many beginners. That's a niche I have here in Minnesota. I teach
Yeah.
people how to knit. And so then they want to move on and they really struggle with the next step, which is pattern reading. And I
Yes.
think a lot of knitters struggle with pattern reading. So if they find you and they like the way you write a pattern, they're going to stick with you, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think
That's,
that people will
yeah.
say, "Oh, I knit this person all the time because I think they write a clear
That's
pattern or
right.
whatever," right?
It's similar. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's similar to me in a lot of ways to well, I deal with this a lot in my architecture teaching. I tell my students in the nicest way possible, I don't even have to like your design, but I have to believe your design. So you have to execute it really well. So you need to follow the steps to tell someone where to look, whether it's laying out a page or giving them information, they need to know how to find the things. And
Absolutely.
they need to be able to know where to go and understand the process. That at the end of the day, if the aesthetic is not something that I personally subscribe to, I think that's fine. I think it's about the process. So when you're talking about the clarity of patterns, using a checklist pattern, doing various things, there are different styles of books, of movies, of clothing that we wear, and stores we go to, and food that we eat. And just because you and I might prefer a different thing, it doesn't mean that either of our choices are bad. It means
Right.
that one resonates with us. And so I've definitely had this situation, and maybe you have as well, that, people are just talking about a book, and I think, okay, cool, I'll try it. And then I go, oh, that did not hit with me. And then I have some authors, and, in a similar way, you were just talking about pattern writers. And I think, okay, I like what that author puts out. I like that author's style. People feel like that about movies or television, like various things. They're like, oh, I know I like things by this director. And it's an interesting way because I think as pattern designers, we evolve, right? We
Oh,
have a format,
absolutely.
but we evolve. And so we think, I tell people sometimes, like, if you knit my first pattern, or it's like it's me, but I continue to grow, right? And so you'll notice maybe some differences, and maybe you don't. Also, maybe you don't notice the differences, but I do, and I feel like I take each pattern sort of as it comes, and think, how can I make sure that this is clear to someone? So I had an instance of I use Discord for my pattern tests. I have a Discord server that everyone's welcome to join, but I use
Yeah.
the channels. I use a private channel for testing, right? And I didn't used to do that. I just did patterns by email because I thought, gosh, we're all overwhelmed. You don't need to have all these other people. And I realized people were giving me feedback. They wanted to be able to talk to others. But when I was going by email, I had one particular pattern that three people individually said they missed one line of directions. It wasn't that the directions were incorrect, but they missed it. And I realized it was the placement on the page. And so I ended up moving the location of this one line. It was like just changing a line break. And no one has ever had an issue with it since the pattern's been published, right? So it's interesting. I like learning about how our brains process different things. And yeah, we're all different. But if I can make something that makes sense to me that I stand behind, and I'm listening to others in the test process, I feel like I just keep growing and learning along the way. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I went back and rewrote some of my
Oh,
early
did you?
patterns. Yeah, and some people dislike the checklists because they don't need me to write out all the
Right,
lines, and it
right.
makes the pattern longer, and they're like, what is this? And I think we're not only creating something like from our heart or our soul or our brain or whatever, but we're also asking people to trust us and to pay money for
Yeah.
that object.
And take their
And
time take their time to
right,
make
which
it.
is
Yeah.
not a lot, right? Like we're not asking for a huge investment, like buying something, you can't return it, right? But it's
Yeah.
not a huge investment, but their time
It's
to
the
figure out
time.
whether or
Yeah.
not they like you, or not like you, but like your design,
Oh, yeah. No, no,
right?
that's a
Their time invested is huge. And they might
yeah,
get
I don't
into it and be like, this
totally.
person's work does not resonate with me,
Yeah,
right?
I don't recall if I mentioned this to you before or not, but I had someone test knit a cowl a couple of years ago. And I do a lot of things that are reversible. I do a lot of
Yes.
things that are garter stitch, that are modular, that they're kind of perpendicular, you join as you go. Because I think this comes from my building sensibility. It's like you get to see all the sides, right? Like there is no backside. And so I like knowing the details of how things go together and being able to really kind of celebrate the three-dimensional experience. I had a tester work on a particular cowl design. And I have this very vivid memory that in the feedback, there were a bunch of notes like, well, why don't you write it like this? And why isn't it like this? And then I actually ended up realizing this person had never knit any of my designs before. And I said, I appreciate your feedback. I'm actually not going to change some of those notes. I said, I think maybe you don't care for my writing style and no hard feelings either way, right? That's
Absolutely.
fine. It's you're doing this in your fun free time. And if it's not enjoyable, do something else, right? Like in the nicest way possible. I used to take a fitness class many years ago, and the instructor said something, to that effect of just like if you don't like the motion, like do something else, right? Like do something that makes you happy. And so it is interesting to figure out sometimes. I know there are some I also, from my architecture background, I look at precedent. I learn from example, and it's not copying, it's learning from something that exists and saying, what are the bones? What is the structure? What is the way it goes together? Um, and how can I draw from and analyze that experience and figure out what resonates with me? And so there are some whether it's a format situation, a layout situation that I learn from it. I learn from precedents. I buy patterns from other designers. I don't always make all of the things, of course, but I like to kind of analyze and look, say, what are people into? What are people gravitating towards? And it could be, oh, the way that this person is sharing photography, or the way that this person is, formatting the pages. We can learn from all of that, I think.
Absolutely. I had to put a line in my tester email when I do a call that says, kind of basically all of your suggestions may not be taken, right?
Right. Oh,
Like
yeah, yeah.
I might not incorporate what you say. That doesn't mean I didn't read it. It just
Right.
doesn't fit with what I'm trying to put out. And and I have had the same thing. I've had a couple testers who just were like, this process is overwhelming to me. And this is, I'm just not getting it. And I'm, whatever. And
Yeah.
we are, we're using those people to support our business. Right. And I
Yeah.
couldn't be more thankful
Right.
for test knitters who stick with me. And
Yeah.
now I have a couple who they enjoy the process so much that they'll test just about anything I knit, but it's
Yeah.
also because they've gotten used to me. Right.
Right.
And
Yeah, no,
they're
that's
like,
interesting too. I have a couple people that I just put out a test call, I think yesterday, the day before. I don't remember what day it was, but there are a couple people who showed up on my list that I was like, okay, I know that you're going to finish. I know that you know my style, which is good, but then also I want someone who is new to the style if possible, right?
absolutely.
Yeah, but I have a couple people who are just, I'm so grateful that they are enthusiastic about what I'm doing. It's interesting, the test that I just put out this week, it's for a cowl that's similar to this one, but it's not this one. And the yarn is like not necessarily readily available. And so I have mixed feelings on this. It's only one skein. I thought maybe other people stashed one like I did. And so I did actually just send a message to everyone yesterday. I said, look, if you try with the yarn you have and it's not really looking right, no need to purchase any other yarn. Give me the feedback that's like yarn with these attributes was not a good match, right? And then
Yeah.
like then you've done some work to help me. And I would never want to say to someone, well, I need you to get something else, right?
Yeah.
In that case, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And what I have found more recently, and I've added to my pattern, because I don't know why it just made me think of this, but like I asked my testers to match the yardage and the weight number more than the word, right? Like
Oh yeah, yeah,
I used 380 yards to 100 grams, and that can be called light worsted, heavy sport.
yeah,
like
right, right.
they're so the words now are not
Yeah.
they're just
And
not good anymore. Like
that's yeah,
we have worsted, light worsted, heavy worsted, light fingering, heavy, like it just try to match either the
right.
fiber content or the number because
Yeah,
that
and
way we'll
sometimes
get a little
for
you'll get a little
sure.
closer because I have so many people using Malabrigo Rios as for an example as worsted and it's not worsted in the
Yeah,
sense of what we used to kind of have as worsted.
right.
It's light. And
Yeah.
they they struggle with gauge or then the drape is different and
The drape is different for
yeah.
sure. I've
So
yeah, I've been working on that as well with some of my designs that use hand spun yarn and figuring out like
right.
how am I explaining what that is so that yours will show up similar to mine. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. I
And that's been an interesting challenge that you know, I think, people want the words, they want the understanding of what it's about, and then yeah, they just I don't know. Yeah, I don't have the exact words for that, but
well,
um
I think the bottom line is I want people to be successful with my pattern.
right,
I
right.
don't want nasty comments or not I don't want negative comments in their project
Yeah.
page or emails, right? Like
Yeah.
I want this to be as
Sure.
successful as possible for you the knitter. What can I do to make that
Yeah, yeah.
better? And yeah, there are
Yeah.
just so many knitting styles in the world that
Yeah.
trying to match for everybody, yeah, and the technique is difficult. Tell
Yeah,
us
it's
about the
interesting.
cowl you're wearing.
Oh, yeah,
So,
this is
because you
called
mentioned it.
sure, this is called Drawn Together. And this is actually one of my favorite patterns. I'm really proud of how it worked out. It's knit in a skein of DK weight yarn. Um,
Yep.
I know, I'm like, I happen to use this is from Suburban Stitcher. It's hand dyed yarn. And this one is 250 yards for 115 grams. So it's a true like 4 ounce skein.
Yep.
And I use just about all of it, but I have ways in the pattern that, if you're running out a little bit, like
Yep.
here's how you make some changes. And so it has a functional drawstring. I don't know how well it's coming together. It's like a very wide rib, and the top is a little bit narrower than the bottom. So this is one that I actually love. I love wearing, and I've made a bunch as gifts. And both my husband and my son actually have one also. They liked it enough that they each kind of picked out a color and said, I would like one too. So that's kind of a neat thing. Let's see, I can like put my hair in a little bit. So if you pull it up, you can still hear me, right?
Yep.
So you can sort of tie it right here,
Yep.
right? And it has so there's sort of like a channel right here that I create
Yep.
for the I-cord. The I-cord, which this is out of sock weight yarn. It used maybe about 5 grams. So this is great for like a leftover. And the bottom here has an applied I-cord bind off. And so,
And so
yeah,
I'm
it's
just
also
going to say,
reversible.
if
What's
my
that?
brother's watching, I'm not knitting that for you because I've already knit you a cowl. He's a runner, which
Oh,
you
yeah.
are a runner, right?
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
watches my podcast. He's not a knitter, but he always
Oh,
watches, which is,
yeah.
but
My husband and my son both wear, they each have one. And then the cool thing, I have a little, I mean, it's quite simple, but if I have a little video that I show that if you tie one I-cord to the end of this one, you sort of pull it through, you can change the color. So I made this originally, and then we changed it out for like a dark gray I-cord. And then my husband looked at it, he said, "Oh, I would wear that." And that's how we sort of figured out that he liked the design too, because he didn't necessarily care for the pink, but he really liked the shape of that.
right.
And so
No,
yeah,
I would totally knit that for Jeff. I'm
yeah.
just laughing because he has a cowl that he likes to run in that is tall, and then he can pull it up over his
Oh
ears,
yeah, yeah.
take it
Yeah,
off,
I was like, I think it would be kind of wide at the base, but you possibly could do something like that as well with this one.
Does
Yeah.
it have a textured stitch pattern on it? Because you do a lot
It
of
is here, I'll
texture.
just take it off and I'll show you. Um, it's like a
Yeah.
really wide knit and purl
Yeah.
rib, and there actually is like a little bit of shaping that the bottom is a little wider than the
Yep.
top, just a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
So
Because
it's quite simple, but I actually have you join so I have you join the top relative to what's going to be below. So sometimes you're doing a knit two together and sometimes you're doing a purl two together from the provisional cast on. So there's no ridge.
nice.
So it's a simple detail, but
No, it's
I
not.
really
Those
like
are.
it.
I
Yeah, no, but
love.
I'm saying that's the kind of stuff you could say I'm wearing all black. Like I gravitate towards things with just thoughtful details that will kind of
Absolutely.
elevate what I'm wearing. And then I like that it has this little bit of learning embedded in it. Yeah,
Yeah. People love that stuff, though.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, so this
a
is a popular one.
knitters can
And people have been
appreciate
making it
those.
as gifts. And so this one, I maybe should have chosen a different color, but I really just love it so much. This is the one that just started in testing. And so this one is a heavier weight yarn. It's a Targi worsted.
Oh,
And so it's a
nice.
different sheep. And so it's got like a little bit more heft to it. I'll just put this one on. And so it's intentionally a little shorter.
Shorter. Yep.
Um, and it has on the back, it has like a little V-shaped kind of opening, like a little notch.
Nice.
And it's textured. I make a lot of things that are reversible also because my husband was wearing things inside out, like and not knowing. And I thought, well, what if both sides could actually be really intentional? So that's actually the reverse side. Um, yeah, maybe I could have chosen something other than black for this one, but I actually really love how it feels and how it functions. And so that is the Athleisure Cowl. So that is
That's funny.
testing
My
right.
sister-in-law wears the shawls that I've made for her. She loves them inside out. She likes the pearl side
Yeah,
better. And the only issue is that if with that is that the ends show,
if right.
right?
And
On a
so
that's not a circular thing, but
yeah.
I'm not going to tell her if she likes
No,
the other side. She's not a
yeah,
knitter. She.
my husband was wearing hats inside out a lot, and that's why I just started to design some things that I thought you don't have to actually give directions. Or if it does end up inside out, it looks really good. And so I was actually just wearing this hat this morning.
Oh
So,
yeah.
so this one is called Switching Stripes. Um, and I'm actually gonna pull, I'm gonna retreat. I'm gonna go back to this one first. This one is Split Decision Hat.
Yep.
This is made from leftover DK weight yarn that I had from a different design. This part is knit side to side, and then this side is knit bottom to top, closing it as you go.
Do you guys see
So,
this? She's brilliant. Like,
so it's all
as
garter stitch. It is two different directions. You're doing some shaping. There's not a single purl stitch in the house here. And in the event that you wore it inside out, it actually looks really lovely. The detail, the way that I join the work, it ends up with joining with a slipped selvage. So it looks, I think it looks really tidy. And so this hat is called Switching Stripes. And I actually got really excited by this. I thought, well, what if the stripe dominance, meaning you change it on the right side, was one way on one part and the other way on the other part. So you can see that those are kind of
yep.
messy looking stripes, I guess, but it's by design. And so if I turn it inside out, um, now these are really clean. We get that beautiful edge. And now I'm looking at sort of the fuzzy side of this. And so this is designed for worsted weight yarn. And this was originally in a like a little ebook through Knit Picks, but I have the rights back to it now. Their version is in light purple and white, and it's actually harder to tell that there's such a contrast.
Oh,
And so once I got the rights back, I changed the main photo for mine to the black and white because I prefer this. But if you have their yarn, like their Swish worsted comes in 50-gram skeins. And so you just need one of each. So it's like a fun way
nice.
to make that. And then if you do choose to fold it up, because it's sort of a taller hat, you
Yeah.
kind of see like the back and forth of the stripes. So
Yeah. It's really smart. It's really smart.
thanks. Thanks. That's kind of how most of my designs sort of come together is I think, what if I could make that? Right. And then I think, well, how would that go together? What has to happen first? How would I finish it? Right. And it's fun. I like that's the challenge that I've always been drawn to with architecture and buildings is like how it goes together. Um, right. Because if we can dream up anything, but if we can't create the directions on how to actually make it come out the right way, then I think that maybe that's a
Oh,
little bit of a bust. So,
oh,
yeah.
absolutely. So what else do you have sitting there? Show us
Okay, I
some
have a
more.
lot of different things. I don't know what you want to see here. I can show
Well, you have
you.
a couple that like your Recalibrate super
Okay,
popular,
I can do
and
that.
we want to look at your fidget toys for sure.
Okay, cool. So
Whatever, yeah.
recalibrate. Yeah, so this one actually I wasn't actually planning to make this a design. I just had this idea in my head. Recalibrate is actually my most popular pattern, and it is a fingering weight modular t-shirt, and it's super loose and super big. Um, and so this is my version right here. You do have to purl because you're doing garter in the round, but there's just a little bit of purling. It ends up looking like garter stitch the whole time. And so this was my way of actually highlighting a bunch of different fingering weight skeins. Um, the front and the back panel, I have them in two different colors, so you can sort of choose which side you like to have forward. I think I have like a loose end right here, but the neckline is slightly lower on one side than the other, and you kind of build the stripes along the side. Um, it's called Recalibrate because it's a little bit of this homage to the fact that I have personally in my life had to like pivot and recalibrate and adjust a lot of things along the way that, I never thought I'd be here, doing what I'm doing. And so it's designed in a way, this really comes from my architecture, design education background that um, I was always the student in class that someone would tell me, okay, here's the design prompt, and I would go, how can I make that, not what you said, but something different. And then I realized becoming a teacher in this setting, I would say to someone, have at it. And I would have people say, how many stripes? How wide are the stripes? Where do I put the stripes? And I'm like, don't tell me that there's stripes. So the way it's created is I say, you're going to have this many total. If you want yours to match the photo, this is how you put the stripes together. But then I have people who color block, who use hand spun, who add racing
Yeah, there are
stripes.
some beautiful ones out
There's
there.
some really cool
Different.
ones.
Yeah.
And then the side panel, you sort of join, you kind of zip it up as you go. I see it as like a big oversized sleeve. But again, it's designed in a way that you build it as you go. So if you're building a side and you say, actually, I want it wider, or actually, I want it narrower, you stop, not where the pattern tells you. You work the side. If you want an even deeper sleeve hole, you just
Yeah.
stop where this panel is, you build the sleeve hole. One of the beautiful things about the fabric of garter stitch, for me, and the fact that, it's going in two different directions right here, there's inherently a 1-to-2 relationship of garter stitch, the
Yep.
stitches in rows. Now, some people will tell me, no, Shana, mine's not like that. Now, when you wear this with time, it will hang and gravity will change it. And so that middle panel does look a little skinnier, but the actual base structure is square. So I use a slipped selvage in a lot of my work, and it makes picking up stitches intuitive, easy, and have that tidy line that I was showing you before.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so this uses fingering weight yarn. It has quite a bit of ease in it, and there are a lot of people who like to have it with less ease. And so they do. And so they choose a smaller size. They do it a little differently. They choose a tighter gauge. The way that this one is based, I give you stitch counts. And so if you already say, I know that, my gauge is going to be a little tighter, meaning more stitches over that 4-inch segment, your final piece will come out a little bit smaller than mine.
Smaller.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
that is Recalibrate. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's a fun one. And as I said, I had a sketch, I had an idea, and I was like video chatting with a friend. And she said, what are you working on today? And I said, oh, it's just this thing. I just have this thing in my head. And then she said, well, tell me when it's ready for testing. And I said, I, what? I said, you actually like it? Yeah. And so she ended up in her version, actually, I have equal stripes, right? Like, two ridges, two ridges, two ridges. She did 2 and 1. And so the math doesn't actually exactly work, right? Like a multiple of 4 versus a multiple of 3. But it was very intuitive for her to figure out, oh, okay, this is the spirit of the design. This is how I end. And then she could still make all the parts. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So tell everybody where your patterns are available.
Yeah, so I sell my patterns on Ravelry and on Payhip. You can see though, I have a gallery that's on my website, which
Yes. Talk
is
about that because
which is shanalines.com. It's not Shana Lines Designs, it's just Shana Lines because I bought it when I was Shana Lines before I was Shana Lines Designs, because I've been Shana Lines a long time. Anyway, years ago, there were people who were feeling, and they still feel, that Ravelry, some of the features of the accessibility was challenging for
yep,
them.
still
And
are.
yeah, and it still is. So at that time, I thought, I should just make a gallery of um, finished objects that are on my website. So at the time, I pulled from photos that people had already shared with me on Ravelry, because you can, as a designer, I know you know this, you can ask someone to feature their photo. If
Yep.
you're like, that one looks great, I would like to have that on my page. So I went from some of those photos that people had already given me permission, and then some of my own, and I built the website from that. And now when I do a test knit, I ask people I ask them for 2 photos at a minimum that they would be willing to let me share. And so occasionally someone, will not want to share a face. I said, that's fine. I want it on a human body. If it's a
Yep.
wearable piece, or if it's a fidget or something, like I want it like in a hand, because I want to actually explain how it might be used. And I offer some tips and tricks about taking photos too, because some people are less comfortable with that. And so that, if you look at any of my patterns on shanalines.com in the knitwear design portfolio, I have every single pattern there. I have like a gallery page of what other people have made, and I've tried to add notes about different things. If you ever have a question, just, send an email. And then um, if you have finished one of my designs and you would be willing to be featured, you can just email gallery@shanalines.com. Which reminds me, I have like 3 photos that I need to add. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
so that's
you
really
do
fun.
feature, and I thought that was brilliant that you're featuring
Thanks.
that. My website needs updating, but I
Well, it
just
was funny because when
too it take everything takes so
everything
much
takes
time.
time. So when we decided to do it, my husband said, "Okay, well, how do other people do this?" And at the time I said, "I haven't actually seen anyone else do it." And so I felt excited that I had that idea to kind of
Yeah.
celebrate and show different makers off. So now it's less cumbersome because we integrate it into the process of everything. So
Yeah.
yeah. So it's less cumbersome. But I love seeing kind of what other people come up with in terms of their colors, their styling, other things. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Do you have a couple more before
Sure.
we
What
Oh,
else?
a show a fidget for
Okay.
sure. Because we
Yeah.
featured that last time, and I
Great.
think that's
So
really fun.
actually, just yesterday I signed up for a maker's market at my climbing gym, not really knowing what it was about. And I had never done this before, but I actually sold finished fidgets. Yeah.
Oh, good for
The whole
you.
market was like not very well publicized. So some people were just like walking through the gym, like just working out, and they're like, what is this table here? So these are the ones that I have left over from last night. And so I'm gonna need to just reach over and grab another one. So many years ago, um, there was actually, I don't know that they're still doing them, but Knit Picks was doing like calls for independent designer
Yeah.
patterns to
Yep.
be featured in different collections. Um,
Yep.
Not that they would own the rights, but they would just like help boost you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I I have a couple patterns in some of their previous collections like that. Like I have these log pillows that are in the rough and rugged collection. And so this
Yes.
one was like back to school. And at the time, my son was pretty small, and I don't even remember what grade he was in. But kids like hang a bunch of things on their backpacks,
Yeah.
like lots of things. And I thought, well, that would be cool to make a fidget. And so this has I'll take a smaller one and show you. It has a marble inside. Ooh, it has a marble inside that you can sort of like squeeze between the pods. And so I had sort of pitched this idea to Knit Picks as like, yeah, I'd like to do that. And they sent me some yarn and helped to promote that one. And so if you have these little clips, these are like a certain carabiner. They're S-beaners. You can do whatever you want, right? But
Yeah.
what I like about these little ones is you can attach it to something and to the fidget. So I've given some of my son's teachers some of these, or some of my friends who wear like a name badge for work and they carry it, but they're all made in a way that you can actually like put your finger in it and sort of like fidget with it and play with it. So I have just this little selection of them left from last night. I started making like the 2 pods when I mean, this is really just like left over from a different project. And then let me just reach over, pardon me, while I
No
get to
problem.
these. And then I have some other.
You didn't get in trouble with any teachers for for sending fidgets to school?
No, they're quiet. They're
I know,
silent.
I know. But
Yeah, I mean, so actually
every
one of the
kid would want
teachers,
one, right? Like
what
everyone in the class, and can I use your fidget and share?
yeah, I made a whole bunch of I
They would
this
be
is
a
sort of
great birthday what do you call that? Gift,
favor.
like yeah, favor. There you
So we
go.
did that one year. Actually, that's funny you say that because I think when my son was in 4th grade maybe or 5th grade, um I think he had like eight or nine kids for his birthday, and he told me every person's favorite color. So we did that. Yeah, we made
That's
like
brilliant because I
individual
have a niece,
ones.
a great niece that has a birthday here. I should knit one of those up for
They're
her
really
because
fun. I
they
mean,
like getting knits from me, but I can't. They're great nieces, so I knit for my nephew, their dad,
yeah.
for years when he was little, right? And
Yeah.
now he got married and has. And I'm just like, I can't knit them
Yeah. Well,
sweaters continually.
I'll send you this pattern when we're done here. I'll send you this one.
I
So,
can buy it.
I can send it to you
Believe
too.
in pattern.
So,
People send me a
so
little.
this is a DK weight one, and then I just want to show you that's my hand spun
Okay.
in DK, which I started to just have fun with that. And so, this is a different one. This is the
Yes.
textured marble fidget toy, and so, I think you can see the marble moving,
Yep.
right? And so this is double knit. It starts with a provisional cast on it's a tubular cast on that leads into double knitting. You're double knitting and then inserting some seed stitch, and then it's a tubular bind off. So it's got just like a ton of skills packed into this little thing. The ones that I had last night were like this. So my pattern has this direction as well to add a loop to it. So we thought climbers could put them on their harnesses. And
Yeah.
these all sold actually. So these are like my own versions of them. And then I have a variation sort of on that is the waffle fidget toy. And so the interesting thing when we were talking about pattern writing and like differences in pattern writing, this one, the textured marble fidget toy, I wrote this a few years ago. I give directions for DK, which is what these are, which is what I usually use, worsted and bulky, and they're slightly different numbers. And then I'm not even sure why I started to do this one, but I started to make this variation right here. And because I made this variation, that's what it was. So this one has two patches, sort of. So
Yep.
my son calls that the figure eight variation. And I thought, well, what if you could make sort of like a double version of that? But I decided I wanted to actually write it a little bit differently. So it's sort of the same pattern, but it's written a little bit differently. And it's interesting to see from people like if they gravitate towards one way or the other, the way it's written. So these two patterns, actually, the waffle fidget toy and the textured marble fidget toy, they're like combined pricing. Like they're sort of buy one, get one because they're kind of the same pattern. And then I have these little I like welts in designs. And so this is just this little the welted fidget toy. And so it's really just like a little demonstration of sampling. But one of my friends said, well, could you just put the I cord, like the loop on this one too? I said, yeah. So this actually, I don't have written in the pattern to do that, but I have that in other patterns to make like a hanging loop. And so this one, there's no marble. This one's even quieter, right? But it's just, it's an opportunity to practice welts and an applied I-cord edge. And so, yeah, I like
It's totally the
making,
teacher in you that is like, because I feel that way too, right? Like, let's add something that helps your skill set, right?
that's actually why I came up with some of these. I just sort of threw it over there, but I have a little card case as well, like a business card case that I came up with sort of to teach a technique. Right. And so I have different pieces like that. Yeah, I think about like if you can do this, then you can do this, right?
I told you
And
guys she's brilliant. She's just got
oh, thank you. You're so
it's
sweet.
the way, but it's the way your brain works. That is, and we've talked about this, that is so different from mine, right?
Yeah,
I'm an English teacher, all about the words, all
right.
about the, talking and just the creative part of it, but not the lines, right?
Yeah.
Like that we
Yeah.
just think differently. And so if your brain works like hers, you're gonna love her patterns,
Or
right?
even
You're
if it
gonna
doesn't and you just want to try, right?
Yes. Well, everyone should try one because how would you
Yeah.
know? Right? Like
Right,
not
right.
necessarily how would someone necessarily and that's
Yeah.
it goes right all the way back around to that. We're just asking you to take a chance on the way we
Yeah.
explore knitting.
Yeah. It's funny what you said before, a little bit. It's like I think we just inherently like I want people to like me, right? Like I want them to like what I'm offering.
Right.
And then I'm also sensitive to like I'm not for everyone. But it is interesting. It's sort of like a social or like psychological experiment to figure out like how people gravitate towards different things, right?
Absolutely.
So whatever you're knitting or making or spinning or crocheting or anything you're doing, if you like it, tell a friend, right? Because I think everyone, a lot of times things come on referral. And so if someone
Right.
says, "Oh, this was really cool," or "I tried this yarn and it was awesome," like tell
Or
someone you know.
repost on social.
Yeah, yeah,
Just
right.
repost
That's
our
what I mean.
stuff.
Like
It
tell
takes two
someone.
clicks, please.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Tell
Because
someone
it's
about
hard
it.
to be seen in a world of the 12 big name
Yeah.
designers. It's hard to be seen, you know.
Right. And so
They are
one of my dear friends reminds me when if I release a pattern and I'm, excited and then I have a moment sometimes I think, "Oh gosh, but why aren't more people interested?" Whatever it is, right? And she says, "Shana, comparison is the thief of joy."
yep.
And I have to remember that one a lot. Just as I said, if I can feel good about what exists in my portfolio, that something got out of my head onto paper into the world, and someone else can understand my directions, and that brings them some happiness, then I should be allowed to just feel good about that. Yeah,
Oh, for sure. But that's a
yeah,
conversation I have with my husband a lot.
yeah,
Like, why? What you put so much time and energy into this, and you don't always get great feedback, great
right.
sales. You're not making money. I got that for several years, right? And I
Mm,
said it can't be about that. But that it's hard, right, for him as a
mhm.
business person who goes to work to make a paycheck to support our family, right? That like he is definitely in that, he was raised to be a good financial
Mhm.
supporter. Right, like,
Yeah.
and I said it can't be about that because there's no absolutely no guarantee that a single person will buy this.
Yeah, yeah,
Like you
there's
put
a
out
little,
something that you think
sure.
is amazing and you get few sales, and then you put out something like that is one of my best selling patterns, my
Yeah.
knitting at the library cowl, which was one of the easiest things I ever wrote. And it kind of came out of somebody just wanted learning some more stitches. It's a sampler.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the fact that there are thousands of knitters that knit in libraries
Yeah. No, it's
and they're
cool.
like, oh, right. You
It's with the words of things, it's so interesting to think how sometimes the name of
oh,
something resonates with someone or doesn't resonate with someone. I don't want to, necessarily give an example, but I picked up a skein of yarn in a local store a few years ago. I actually don't even remember what it was right now, but I just remember picking it up and I was like, I could never buy that. Like the name was really off-putting to me. It had just like a
yep,
personal
yep, yep,
connotation.
yep.
And then I thought, gosh, that's fascinating because the color was beautiful. And there was something about the way the words, connected. And so, I mean, I hope to create the opposite. That's like you said, knitting at the library. Oh, yeah, I like that.
But
Right?
I got so
Yeah.
many comments of groups that knit at the library
And
that
it
they meet
resonates.
and they
Yeah.
wanted to knit it together. And I was
Yeah.
like, that it just looked like books on a page when you turned it sideways.
Yeah.
Right, books on the shelf of a library. So we
Sure.
went to the library, we took the picture, right? But
No, it's cool, but
but it just blew up, and it
and then
was
I have a wonderful friend who told me that she never reads any of the intros of patterns, right? Because I'm like, I try to like write something that feels significant and I thought so it's a good reminder, like I said, the situation with the student saying how many stripes, where do the stripes go? And then someone else goes, stripes, like, ooh, um, there are so many people and we connect with things in different ways. So um
I agree. I think a lot of people do not read the romance copy.
yeah.
And that happened with this sweater. This is called I Feel Pretty, and
Yeah.
it is a pretty, it's beads, right? We just put some
Yeah.
beads on, but it was from the musical West Side Story.
Yeah.
I Feel Pretty. And I
Yeah.
love that musical. I used that music when I was in high school in my floor exercise
Oh,
routine. I
cool.
used some music from that at my wedding, right? But it isn't I Feel Pretty. It's the music, it reminds me of
Yeah,
Sparkling Beads, and she felt pretty in that moment in that dress
sure.
that she had on, and she was singing, right? And I'm getting comments from people that are saying you look pretty, and that was
Isn't
like
that
that
fun?
didn't enter my mind,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but they're taking it in that
Well,
way.
actually, I'll share one more with you right here
Yes,
that
please do. Please do.
I have something that I
That
released.
your thought just resonated with me on that
Yeah,
timing,
yeah, no, and
right?
this
Like,
resonated with me. So I have three versions of this, right? They're all neutrals,
of
but
course we
um
do.
but it came in three sizes and I thought, oh, I'll just make another one. Um well, I'll tell you why. Okay. I'm like interrupting myself. So I was working on a design that ultimately I ended up ripping out this summer last summer, that was with some of my hand spun and I'm working on gaining confidence in designing with my hand spun. They really are one of a kind. And yeah, so I had this project and I thought this is not right to take with me. I'm going out of town. So I grabbed a skein, a 150-gram skein of Leading Men Fiber Arts, their BFL base, the
Uh,
soliloquy, which is like one of my favorite yarns. So I just had some. So I grabbed some and this is pretty long, right? So that's like doubled. And I created this, it's like I in the test we were calling it a scarf-like shawl or a shawl-like scarf, right? And it's a oh, you can't see it that well. Here, let me take this color. You can see it a little bit better. And so it's an offset rib with
okay.
increases and decreases. It's incredibly intuitive. And it was something that I knit during this summer vacation. And I was able to just at a few key points weigh the yarn, you know. And
Yep.
so I thought, gosh, what should this be called? And I kept trying to think of different names, and now I can't even remember some of them. And I ultimately ended up calling it Out of Office because it was something that's like you can autopilot. And I have since realized I'm like, what a slightly odd name because people talk about like just being out of office and like it comes up with different things. And so I still like it. I actually really love the piece, but it's funny because I often hit a point with a pattern that I like the name just like hits me in the head and I'm like, that is it. And this one I actually I still love the piece, but I continue to wonder, should I have spent a little more time? So I ended up realizing I wanted to take a photo of the process and I was way past it. And so that's the 150-gram size. This is the one skein 100-gram
Okay.
size. And then one of my friends and testers will forever in my test calls when I say any other questions, she said, "What about a 50-gram?" And I was like, "Okay, fine." So we did that one also. So it has three sizes. It's all in the same pattern. Um, I think
Since
it was
October, I second guessed the name of this sweater.
yeah,
Like I
right?
second guessed it the whole way through. I was
Yeah.
like, I don't know, I don't know.
Isn't that funny? And
But you
sometimes, yeah,
also, I think that a lot of knitters don't know that you have to pick names that aren't already used on Ravelry 15 times.
right. Yeah, I
Like
think
it
I
is
have a right.
really,
I
it can be very hard to be to have your pattern come out, and you have to decide whether or not you're going to put the name scarf behind it or
Oh,
shawl
yeah.
behind it or not put that behind it,
100%.
because if you don't, then the algorithm is not great.
Yeah, I have a
Especially if
couple.
we spell it wrong, if you add an s or not an s,
Yeah,
right? And so you have to like search and search
yeah.
and see and go to Google and put it in and see if
There are
what
a
pops up.
couple, yeah. There's a couple funny things like that for sure. I do have a couple that I think there's a name that someone has something similar. So I've had the split decision hat for many years. I have split decision mitts. I don't have them right here. And of someone I know, I don't know, it was maybe a year or two ago. She said, Shana, I just saw someone else published split decision hat. And I looked at it and I thought, yeah, okay. We both chose the same name. The actual hat is very different, right?
Yes.
And
Yep.
so I actually I feel like this again from my design education background, we can come up with similar ideas from different places.
Oh,
We can look at the same prompt and come up with the same idea. Ultimately, like we said before, if you and I were like, I'm going to write the same pattern, yours is going to have a checklist and
oh,
mine isn't,
right.
right? And we could
And mine is going to
ultimately
be neon.
No, but I'm saying, but regardless of even if we use the exact same yarn, the exact same color, and all of the attributes were the same, the
For sure.
actual writing differs.
Oh,
And that is sort of like, that's something that I actually like to remind myself of because I think the way that I put the words together, not only the design, but the way I put the words together are mine.
yep,
And
absolutely.
I kind of feel sad sometimes when I see people, a bigger name um will put something out and someone will say, well, that looks like
Yeah,
something that so and so this small name did. It's like, really, are we going to do that? Because
yeah.
there are so many ways to do
Ways,
so many things.
absolutely. So many ways. I
Yeah.
agree. I
And
agree.
I think if we get stuck in this, well, someone made a triangle shawl, so I can't make a triangle shawl. What about your triangle shawl is yours,
I
right?
do think that there is room for everybody.
I think there's room. And so, I mean, it's like,
I mean, the
yeah,
market is saturated. You might not make any money, and if you become a designer, you don't knit as much for yourself. Like
yeah. I mean,
there are a few drawbacks, but
yeah, I think
if
about
that's
just the
something that you've
ways.
always wanted to do, and you have an idea, and it,
Yeah.
I don't know that any of us have an idea that is entirely 100% original,
You know,
except that it's yours.
it's yours
Like
and it's like,
you owned that. It came from inside you.
right. And so your life experience, like I actually really love, I love garter stitch modular knitting. As I said, I love Stephen West stuff, like just the ways that he's putting shapes together. So a
Oh,
lot of that is very inspirational to me. It doesn't mean that I am replicating, it means I'm saying, I learned that technique. I have an idea how I can use that and how I
yeah.
can use the words and write them myself. And then the piece is mine.
Yes,
Everything we do is shaped by everything we do. So,
absolutely.
where you've lived, who you've met, how old you are, everything shapes what you do. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
That that was a brilliant way to kind of wrap it up here.
cool.
Because I
Thanks.
just think that that is inspiring because you're also can insert the word knitter into that, not
Oh,
just
yeah.
designer. Everything
Everything
you
shapes what
make,
you do. Right. Whether
everything
you
you make
are,
is original to you.
that's right.
Your stitches, your color, your palette, you can change it. You can make it your own.
Because I have people say to me, they say, well, I couldn't come up with that pattern. Cool. You didn't have to. You get to pick how you execute it, right?
Right.
In your color with your style and your flair, it won't ever look exactly the same. And so that's your creative take on the framework that I've created.
That's why
And
it's
so,
always such
yeah.
an honor to go to the project pages
Yeah.
and like look
Oh,
and
yeah.
see what they did. Like I'm just like, oh, they knit my pattern.
That's
They
right.
they
Yeah.
made
And I'm
it
like,
fit.
we've never even met in real life. Look at that,
I
right?
know. I
Yeah.
know. That yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing feeling for sure. Do you
Yeah.
have anything else that we missed? Because
No, this was really fun. I'm glad that we could
we didn't show your pillow, but your log pillow, do you have it? Okay. I
I
was
have the
gonna
little
say
one. This is my travel log. This is one of the logs. This is called logging off. And then this is the little version of lumber support, which is not lumbar, it's lumber.
they're so quirky and so perfect.
And thank you. But actually, there is a way in Ravelry to make like an alias. So if someone does search lumbar support, they actually still find this. So, but these are the little ones. These are my travel logs.
Wasn't that your son's concept? Like, didn't he want
This
a
one. Yeah, yeah.
he wanted a pillow that looked like a tree
He
log?
wanted a pillow that looked like a cross section of a tree. Yep.
Yeah.
And so the actual pillow is a little bit bigger. This is the travel
Right.
one, which is
Yeah.
super fun. I'm sorry, the large size. This is in the pattern too.
Right.
And this is so fun. And then I don't even remember how we started talking about this, but then he actually misheard the word lumbar support and he said lumbar support. And I was like, okay, we're done. We're making this. So these are funny and people who have cabin decor tend to like these, right?
Yep.
And so those are fun. As I mentioned
And
before, I've been getting into working with my hand spun in designs, and that has been That's been a fun experience, and I hope to continue to come up with things to highlight hand spun or just different color changing yarn if you're not a spinner yourself. Um, yeah, and I have a lot of things I want to do, right?
Oh,
I have a lot of
me
things I
too.
want to do.
There's, yeah, so many things on the list,
Yes.
but only so much
That's
time.
right. That's
Okay,
right.
I don't
Yeah,
want to
because I
take
want to
any
do a
more of
good
your time
job.
today because you and I could chat for another hour. We
We
could show
could.
every design, but go over and check out all of Shana's designs because they're really fun.
Oh,
They're
thanks,
very
Cori. Thank you for
intuitive.
having me.
Her pattern writing is awesome. Yeah, and if you have any questions, you can reach out to her because she's very communicative. Follow her on Instagram. Go favorite her stuff on Ravelry. That's
Oh,
another way you can
thanks.
really support people. Is just like favorite the patterns, give them a
Yeah,
heart so
that's
that
true.
stuff gets seen. Because we are just loving this kind of design process for both of us, and
Yeah.
it's really nice to be able to share it. And
Yeah,
I
thanks.
really appreciate the fact that we redid this
I'm
because
glad
it
we did
was
too. I'm glad we did too.
such a good interview. And
Yeah.
the only one that I have down here that we didn't talk about was like the numbers of patterns that you have. So she has designed shawls and sweaters and mitts and cowls and toys and hats and toppers and bowls. Like
Yeah.
there's a broad expanse here, and we didn't talk about each and every one, but I do want to put that out here right at the
Thanks.
end. So thanks everybody, and we'll see you next
Thank
time.
you.